All right, before we get into it, we have a confidentiality notice on here. So the content of the following file concerns a vital part of ongoing Foundation special project Hephaestus. Any and all attempts of accessing said file are logged, and further attempts to access it without proper clearance, level 3, 4586 or above, will incur in disciplinary measures. In the event that the content of this file is relayed outside of authorized channels, all subjects involved in such breach will be terminated. That's why I hand-selected all of you with good marks on all of your tests and no infractions. We need to have our shit together on this one. What we're looking at today, SCP-4586, Object Class Thaumiel. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-4586 is to be kept at Site-19 in a standard humanoid containment cell connected to a 5-meter corridor leading to the facility. A control room is to be built adjacent to the cell to monitor the specimen through a camera placed in the cell. SCP-4586 is equipped with a Mark V shock collar operated by technicians in the control room. Batteries must be exchanged every 72 hours, and any attempts of the subject to tamper with the collar must be met with an electric discharge to incapacitate it. Should SCP-4586 remove the collar, 2 guards outfitted with electric guns and tasers are to stun the specimen. In the event of a successful containment breach, the site is to be placed on lockdown, and Mobile Task Force Lambda 5 White Rabbit's on-site team is to incapacitate and recontain SCP-4586. As per Project Hephaestus Directive, SCP-4586 is to be escorted on a daily basis to the site's research wing, where it is to work on SCP-related projects in an assigned laboratory. During such period, the specimen is allowed to roam the laboratory unrestricted with at least 2 guards supervising it. Requests made by SCP-4586 regarding its designated projects are to be submitted to the approval of the site director. In order to prevent containment breaches, all mechanical and electric devices employed by the subject must be accounted for before it is escorted back to its cell, as SCP-4586 is capable of anonymously modifying them to its needs. Description: SCP-4586 is a mobile human skeleton, 1.84 meters in height and 50 kilograms in weight, wearing a 19th century era suit, matching black shoes, black gloves, a top hat, and a decorative wooden cane. Despite the lack of necessary organs, subject possesses visual and auditory capabilities similar to that of a normal person. While it is still unknown how the specimen is able to hear, tests have confirmed SCP-4586 is capable of seeing through its only eye, located on the left socket of its skull. Subject cannot see through its right eye, and its respective socket and nose have been covered with a black material believed to be a polymer of unknown composition. Even though SCP-4586 is incapable of blinking, both the eye and the subject's sight do not appear to be affected. Additionally, while it lacks both muscular tissues and an apparent nervous system, SCP-4586 can walk and run at average speeds. As of yet, no attempts of extracting samples from either SCP-4586's bones, the material in its eye socket, or its functional eye have been successful. Subject is capable of enduring extreme temperatures, pressure, and kinetic impact. However, while the entity is resistant to most types of damage, electric stun guns and tasers can temporarily incapacitate SCP-4586. This is an Addendum 4586-01. Subject is sentient and capable of engaging in both verbal and written communication in several languages, although it has shown a preference for English and is usually formal in its speech. SCP-4586 is extremely intelligent. Tests have shown it to have an IQ of 189 and is knowledgeable on several subjects such as philosophy, mathematics, and history. According to written and oral accounts from SCP-4586, its scientific knowledge ranges from that available during the 19th century to current times. The specimen is capable of building mechanical devices, sometimes with anomalous properties, with few resources available, employing an unknown crafting method. Subject claims to be well-versed in a scientific field of difficult comprehension related to a work recurrently mentioned. SCP-4586 claims to be Dr. Robert Mirthwallen, born in 1830 in New York. The entity is capable of providing a detailed biography of Dr. Mirthwallen's life. However, should it be questioned about certain events or details, SCP-4586 appears to purposely provide vague answers, and should it be pressed to reveal more, it either attempts to switch the topic at hand or it refuses to answer. Records from the Mirthwallen family reveal that Robert was a reclusive individual who dedicated much of his life and his family's wealth to his scientific pursuits. In April of 1867, Dr. Mirthwallen was reported missing before he was presumed dead in June of that year. Neither Dr. Mirthwallen's body nor his burial grounds have ever been located. All right, these are the SCP-4586 interviews. Interview 1, interviewer, Dr. Coulter, date 9/2/2000, begin log. Dr. Coulter, hello SCP-4586, can you hear me? 4586, of course my dear sir, how do you fare? Coulter, I'm, fine. SCP-4586, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. 4586, very well. How may I be of assistance? Dr. Coulter, first of all, can you explain what you are? 4586, as far as I'm aware, sir, I'm a man. Well, perhaps a unique specimen amongst others, as my flesh and blood have long expired. Still, a man, nevertheless. Dr. Coulter, a man, you say? Who are you? 4586, my name is Dr. Robert Arthur Mirthwallen, good sir. I was born on September 19th, 1830 in New York. Dr. Coulter, okay then, so your flesh and blood expired. I take it that you died. 4586, as a matter of fact, sir, no. I removed them from my body. Dr. Coulter, you removed, why would you remove them? 4586, I found that even in the most favorable outcome, I would not survive to see my work completed. Thus, I had no alternative but to alter my body to suit such needs. Dr. Coulter, you altered your body? How? 4586, I built a machine that allowed me to safely conduct the transition. But I wouldn't want to bore you with torturous and rather gruesome details, lest you become unnecessarily confused. Dr. Coulter, no, I want to hear about it. What kind of machine was it? 4586, good sir, I'm sure that there are better subjects than a relic of the past for science men like us to discuss. After all, Dr. Coulter, SCP-4586, please answer the question. 4586, it was an insignificant device, sir. Dr. Coulter, I'd like you to clarify about it. What components did you employ in its creation? 4586, I would prefer not to speak of this subject. Dr. Coulter, how long did it take for it to be built? SCP-4586 proceeded to walk to the other extreme of the cell. Further attempts to question SCP-4586 about its machine or anything else were met with silence. Attempts to coerce the entity with electric bursts were also unfruitful. End log. Closing statement. The entity is willingly withholding information about its origin. We need to send our agents out there to find everything we can on this Robert Mirthwallen. Requesting authorization to conduct more interviews with the specimen. This is signed by Dr. Coulter. All right, interview 2, Dr. Coulter, date 13/2/2000. Forward. During the past days, several tests were done to verify SCP-4586's physical capabilities. However, subject remains unharmed and no changes in its behavior have been detected. Begin log. Dr. Coulter, SCP-4586, come in. 4586, well, hello, good sir. How have you fared in these past days? Dr. Coulter, fine. SCP-4586, today I'd like to... 4586, if I may speak with candor, doctor, I expected our interview to take place quite some time after the last one, considering what I believe to have been multiple tests since my incarceration. Dr. Coulter, that's exactly the topic I want to discuss with you today, SCP-4586. We've analyzed your a skeleton, and we found it impossible to sample it. Now, in our last conversation, you said to have altered your body to serve a certain function. I suppose that this alteration process is responsible for that? 4586. Were I to remain with my primitive endoskeleton, it would surely be a great detriment to the process of my work. I had its composition altered to sustain more difficulties I could potentially encounter. Dr. Coulter, with your machine, correct? 4586. Yes, sir. Dr. Coulter, What is it really, the compound on your skeleton? 4586. If you really must know, good doctor, it is a type of polymer that I have personally developed. While crafting it was more Herculean than I had initially anticipated, I dare say that the results have far outweighed all exertions. Dr. Coulter, and that black material in the other eye? 4586. The exact same compound, sir, in a highly concentrated state, a mere consequence of my transition. Dr. Coulter, what about your other eye? What's it made of? 4586. Oh, I do not believe, doctor, that such substance is not widely known to others. I myself had only managed to synthesize a meager amount. One could call it, I gather, an artificial matter assembled in a synthetic organ, one to enable my sight once I had become what I am today. Dr. Coulter, why is it that you have only one eye, SCP-4586? 4586. Well, sir, such is the mark of my initial carelessness. I once possessed the ability to see with both eyes, yet I was cursed from a young age to have the right one unable to properly view the world from a distance. Thus, I had always worn a monocle to circumvent this unfortunate issue. However, upon the commencement of my alteration process, I had forgotten about my machine's unacceptability of metallic devices. I was unable to remove it from the eye in time, which led to its destruction and of the monocle. Dr. Coulter, you didn't think about, replacing it? Building a new one? 4586. Such enterprise nonetheless proves to be arduous, as the materials required to craft the required compound are of extreme scarcity. Notwithstanding, sir, not only has the lack of such eye proved completely useless in hindering my work, it is also a manner for me to remember what dire effects can one's haphazardness lead to when dealing with the unknown. Dr. Coulter, I see. Well, SCP-4586, that'll be all for this interview. 4586, certainly, doctor. End log. Closing statement. SCP-4586 continues to sustain that it modified its body with unknown devices and substances, though it is still unclear how it allegedly did that. Further tests are to be scheduled to determine the specimen's physical endurance. Subject continues to refer to a supposed work, but was also not specific on its nature. Requesting authorization to conduct more interviews with SCP-4586. This is signed by Dr. Coulter. This is interview 3. Interviewer, Dr. Coulter. Date, 27/03/2000. Forward. As authorized by the site director, SCP-4586 has been given blank notebooks and he has been writing in them ever since. Begin log. Dr. Coulter. All right, SCP-4586, can you hear me in there? 4586. Yes, I can, good doctor. It's been a long while since we had our last conversation. Dr. Coulter. Indeed it has. Though I see that you've been busy writing on these notebooks we've given you. 4586. Yes, sir, indeed. While you have shown to be utmost entirely incompliant with my requests, I must make do with the resources I have at my disposal. After all, I would rather carry on with my work than to remain idle in this cell. Dr. Coulter. I see. SCP-4586, since we last spoke, you have requested access to several materials. When you did so, you claimed that they're vital to your work. What is this work exactly? 4586. Well, sir, such is a subject I am not accustomed of conversing with others about, especially because of its incomparable nature. Nevertheless, I believe the most precious analogy to the answer to this question would be to mend a wound. Dr. Coulter, to mend a wound. How so? 4586. Firstly, sir, one would need to know of the existence of multiple planes of reality in our universe. Dr. Coulter. Planes of reality, as in different dimensions. 4586. Indeed, sir. While they are to remain parallel, however, one of these planes has managed to coincide with ours. Its elements thus bleed into our world and affect it accordingly. Dr. Coulter. What sort of elements? 4586. Forgive me, sir, but I cannot explain satisfactorily what they are, especially without proper means. However, I believe one such as yourself could observe them in certain rare objects. Dr. Coulter, what kind of objects, SCP-4586? 4586. Objects, doctor, that are not what they seem. Most resemble ordinary items, yet they possess anomalous properties. Some are unique, with no respective versions of themselves to be commonly found. Still, all of these devices were forged with those elements as its prime material. Their anomalous behavior is not the product of chance, but of careful engineering, sir. Dr. Coulter, and how is all this related to your work? 4586. The purpose and the means with which those objects were created, sir, are vile. As long as the two planes of reality continue to intersect, they will continue to be made. Thus, my work consists of studying the elements of this new dimension and reversing their effects. And if you and your fellow companions were to assist me in such endeavor, we would certainly be certain to make significant progress. Dr. Coulter, I'm afraid that's not happening. SCP-4586? 4586. Well, that is unfortunate. Is there anything else I could be of service to you, my good sir? Dr. Coulter. No, SCP-4586, that'll be all for today. End log. Closing statement. SCP-4586 appears to have a certain familiarity with what appear to be SCPs. Additionally, unlike in the past interview, the specimen has revealed information about its purpose, although it has remained elusive and vague about its details. This is signed by Dr. Coulter. This is interview 4. Interviewer, Dr. Coulter, date 8/04/2000. Forward, SCP-4586 was capable of disabling its shock collar 3 days ago and had been assembling its pieces in an unidentified device. Subject's notebooks have been impounded by the Foundation. Begin log. Dr. Coulter, SCP-4586, come in. 4586, hello, doctor. How are you today, sir? Dr. Coulter, SCP-4586, I'd like to discuss your attempted containment breach. You managed to disable your shock collar and were using the pieces to build something. I'd like to know what your objective was. 4586, good doctor. Speaking with full sincerity, I truly aim to escape this facility and direct myself somewhere I can continue my work uninterrupted. It has been quite some time since it has yielded pragmatic results, and I would certainly not wish it to linger more than it already has. Dr. Coulter, is that why you created that device we recovered? 4586. Yes, sir. While I had not yet found a way to imperceptibly remove its power cell to fuel my machine, it could have assuredly propitiated my flight from this cell. Dr. Coulter, this device you were creating, what was it exactly? 4586. Nothing special, sir. In elementary terms, I believe you could consider it a lockpick of sorts. Dr. Coulter, so you've lost your notebooks, the progress of your work over something that wasn't special? 4586. Oh, sir, you misunderstand the value I attribute to them. I merely use them a method of organizing my theories and propositions during this incarceration period, as I memorized most of the information regarding my work. All positives aside, I would have preferred to retain them. Dr. Coulter, well, we will be taking a better look at them now, SCP-4586. 4586. Yes, I would assume as much, Doctor. Nevertheless, I am not one of great expectations concerning the results from its analysis due to its uniqueness. Dr. Coulter, what makes you think we won't be able to ever understand this work of yours, SCP-4586? 4586. Sir, if I may trouble you for a lamentable comparison, you and your fellow researchers remind me of my father. He was the proprietor of great wealth, yet he did not employ it for anything else other than the achievement of more wealth or mere luxuries. It proved to be quite a challenge to convince him to assist me with my scientific projects, as he did not possess the farsightedness necessary to comprehend them. I, on the other hand, understand my work, have the necessary temperance, and with the right conditions could accomplish it much faster than at this rate. Dr. Coulter, well, unfortunately, that option is unavailable to you, SCP-4586. 4586, I urge you gentlemen to reconsider my request. The intent of my work is not detrimental to anyone whatsoever. It is not as if I am an uncontrollable maniac as... Dr. Coulter, as who? 4586, as the harmful artifacts I have mentioned to you, good sir, all I ask is that my request is rationally analyzed. Dr. Coulter, I'll be sure to forward your request to the responsible personnel as soon as possible. Thank you for your cooperation, SCP-4586. That'll be all for today. End log. Closing statement. The specimen has revealed the intent of the constructed device, although it is still unclear how it would actually operate. SCP-4586 has also manifested the desire to flee from captivity. Suggest increasing security measures by developing a new shock collar for the entity. Finally, the subject has again emphasized the importance of its work, but no substantive details about it have been provided. This is signed by Dr. Coulter. All right, this is interview 5, level 4 clearance required. I already got that taken care of here for you. Interviewer, agent. Interview supervised by O5. Date 2000. Begin log. Agent SCP-4586, are you there? 4586. Why, yes, sir. How are you? I was expecting the doctor to continue with the interviews, though. Agent SCP-4586, we'd like to discuss about your operations in your laboratory. Let's start with the devices we recovered. How were you able to make those things? 4586. It was a combination of scientific knowledge and my extra-dimensional expertise, sir. Agent, we would like to know where you acquired this knowledge, SCP-4586. 4586. Well, sir, it's a rather long story, how I came to be what I am, and I would certainly not like to waste time in such purposeless endeavor. Agent, answer the question, SCP-4586. 4586. I would prefer not to, sir. Agent, we could shock you, SCP-4586, until you decide to cooperate with us. We can wait until you decide to cooperate with us. Either way, no more contact with you will be made until then. 4586. My dear sir, there was no need for such savagery. We could certainly reach a mutually beneficial arrangement. Think of the possibilities if we were to combine our resources. Agent was instructed not to answer SCP-4586. After 32 minutes of silence, subject resumed communication. 4586. Still, if only so that a modicum of civility is maintained, I shall satiate your thirst for information. When I was a young man, I came across a reclusive individual who could build imaginably perfect devices and materials, far beyond of what I'd ever seen. I invested heavily on his business, and he eventually revealed to me the source of his craft and the method which made it incomparable. It was a brutal place where people were inhumanly butchered and coerced by inhumane beasts. And as their blood was spilled, the runes etched on the floor ensured perfection to production. I studied them for years until I conceived a new method of runic research, a much more efficient one than the barbarism that ruled that place. Mr. Anderson, however, the sadistic monster that he was, cared more for that suffering than anything else. When I revealed my new method to him, he took great issue with it, prompting my escape from that heinous factory. Since then, as I once explained to the doctor, I continue my work into understanding the power of those runes with the hope of preventing one madman's sadism from swallowing our world whole. Has my answer been satisfactory, sir? Agent, it has, SCP-4586. The work you were conducting, how close were you to its completion? 4586. Well, sir, with the resources available at the time, I was able to progress more than ever, but I made few discoveries. I estimate completion is still far. Agent, very well. SCP-4586, we've been analyzing your notebooks, but we haven't been able to fully understand them yet. We'd like you to translate them to a more tangible language so we can understand your work more precisely. 4586. It would be of my utmost pleasure working with the Foundation to finish my research, sir. However, I am not inclined to transmit my knowledge to others, only to remain imprisoned while they wield a power of unbeknownst limitations. Not to mention the difficulties in conveying in simple terms the particularities of my work. Agent, well then, you'll have to content yourself with 4 walls and an infinite amount of time to write. SCP-4586. 4586. Time, sir, is not a commodity that the world has in store to so lavishly spend. If a game of patience is what it is willing to defeat me with, then it is one it has already lost. Should my work fail to be completed, sir, then all is doomed. Agent, yeah, we'll see about that. End log. Closing statement. Subject holds sensitive information about the Foundation, although it does not appear to realize that. Efforts over its writing should be doubled in order to obtain more information about its work. Specimen could be used to decode factory-related SCPs. Recommend moving it to a more secure facility and raising its class to Thaumiel. This is signed by O5- This is Interview 6. Interviewer, Dr. Coulter. Date 15/12/2000. Forward. As per my orders, SCP-4586 was escorted by MTF Lambda 5 as a vital part of Operation Hades Gate. Despite its failure, the mission confirmed the specimen's connection with the GOI, the factory, as well as its knowledge regarding their components and construction. Begin log. Dr. Coulter, SCP-4586, come in, please. 4586, hello, good Dr. Wyatt. It's been quite some time since we last conversed. I trust you have fared well in this period of absence. Dr. Coulter, I have, yes. SCP-4586, I'd like to ask you about the operation you were sent on a few weeks ago. What can you tell us about the construct you were able to analyze? 4586, oh, yes, sir. It was a fascinating device. I had thought its craft was much more limited than the one I was able to observe, although such would be the expected result, since its maker's progress has apparently been unhampered. Despite the unfortunate events that transpired after my arrival, I thought to have been able to register a rather extensive, albeit incomplete, amount of information concerning the runic decoder. Dr. Coulter, yes, we've received your notes from Camp Epsilon SCP-4586. However, much like your impounded notebooks, we're still working on understanding them. We were hoping you could shed a light on the device we found there. 4586. Of course, good doctor. In simple terms, the purpose of the device is to refine interdimensional elements and direct them toward a desired function. Dr. Coulter, I see. These elements, are they the ones you mentioned in one of our past interviews? 4586. Not exactly, sir. The elements I spoke of are analogous to crude matter, improper for more exquisite uses. Those produced by a runic decoder, however, are pure in their essence, capable of altering objects in an unfathomable scale. Dr. Coulter, and how does the device create these elements? 4586. Oh, doctor, the decoder does not craft them on its own. The elements are extracted through the use of runes. Dr. Coulter, runes, SCP-4586? 4586. Yes, sir. Whenever they are submitted to appropriate stimuli, such runes are capable of directly harnessing the elements from their plane of reality. Dr. Coulter, how are these runes capable of doing that? 4586. Well, doctor, the intricacies of such process are quite sophisticated. A satisfactory answer to your question requires many hours to be properly explained, quite possibly more than our discussion would be allowed to continue. However, good sir, I believe there is an alternative approach to this matter capable of circumventing such difficulty. Dr. Coulter, oh, and what is that? 4586. I would wish to personally assist you and your colleagues in comprehending my notes. I am quite certain that such cooperation would allow you to obtain some understanding not only of the manner in which the runes function, but of my work as a whole. Even if only its menial details are all that is learned, your enlightenment on such subject would make for more auspicious discussions. Dr. Coulter, I thought that this matter had already been resolved, SCP-4586. We're not letting you out of there. 4586. Oh, doctor, I beg to differ. The last occasion your colleague spoke to me, I was under the impression they were quite interested in understanding my work. You yourself have admitted that confusion still permeates the minds of those who currently possess my notes. And fret not, for I do not aim to jeopardize such a wonderful opportunity by prematurely attempting to escape, as the products of such cooperation are astonishingly propitious for the both of us. Dr. Coulter, that is quite a different behavior than you displayed in our previous conversation. What changed? 4586. If I may be entirely honest, Doctor, recent events have provided me with a new perspective of current circumstances. Collaboration, even if not ideal, is perhaps a more suitable alternative than this taciturn confinement, sir. Dr. Coulter, I see. Well, SCP-4586, I'll need to discuss with my superiors about this proposal of yours. 4586. Of course, good sir. I will eagerly await for your return. Is there maybe a further assistance by chance? Dr. Coulter. No. I believe that'll be all for today, SCP-4586. Thank you. End log. Closing statement. As expected, SCP-4586 has demonstrated to be knowledgeable regarding the device encountered in Operation Hades Gate, as it explained its functionality and additional components. Despite the difference between the runes present in the subject's notebooks and the ones described in the notes taken at Camp Epsilon, it appears that such is the source of the power behind the factory-related facilities. However, despite clearly understanding the mechanisms responsible for the harnessing of such power, SCP-4586 has claimed it to be of difficult comprehension. SCP-4586 is apparently more willing to assist the Foundation with understanding its unknown scientific field of mastery than before. For that reason, I would like to request that my team and I are allowed to conduct a trial run with the specimen in order to determine how the entity is capable of crafting devices that are essentially SCPs themselves. Dr. Coulter. Log update. Request approved. Have this trial run carried out as soon as possible. This was written by 05. All right, this is the SCP-4586 addenda. This is Addendum 4586-01, SCP-4586 Recovery Log. SCP-4586 was discovered on 2000 at Pennsylvania. The local police department received a call from a man claiming to have trapped a living skeleton in his garage. According to him, he came home and found the skeleton hanging from his electric fence. Upon removing the skeleton and taking it to the garage for closer inspection, it began to autonomously move and grunt, to which the man responded by running inside and trapping SCP-4586 there. Agent embedded in the police force notified the Foundation, and SCP-4586 was recovered later that day. Class A amnestics were administered to non-Foundation personnel involved, and the incident was expunged from police records. Additionally, Foundation agents were able to locate what appears to be an industrial laboratory in an abandoned factory kilometers from SCP-4586's recovery site. The following is a list of unique equipment recovered from said laboratory, apparently built by SCP-4586. All recovered devices have a small button. When these buttons are left unactivated, devices operate in an indistinguishable manner to their normal counterparts. When activated, however, they're capable of exhibiting supernatural characteristics. In such conditions, small runes etched on each device glow with a blue light. These are a brass optical microscope. When its button is activated, it becomes capable of molecular level observation. A 19th century clockwork refrigeration device. When its button is activated, the device is capable of refining any material in seconds. A manual machine press. When its button is activated, any materials pressed are transformed into raw obsidian. A steel gram chemical condenser. When its button is activated, any liquid that goes through it becomes an unidentified blue liquid. Several notes were recovered in the area, which Foundation researchers are currently attempting to decipher. Symbols resembling the runes found on the devices had also been written on the factory floor with chalk. Research is ongoing to determine their significance. All right, this is Addendum 4586-02, Incident 4586-A. Upon SCP-4586's containment in Site-19, the subject was outfitted with a Mark III shock collar. However, on 5/4/2000, when attempting to summon the subject to a scheduled interview, the acting technician found the shock collar to be unresponsive. As per the specimen's standard containment protocol, 2 guards were dispatched to stun it. Once SCP-4586 was incapacitated, the shock collar was temporarily removed for examination, which revealed its circuitry to be mostly missing. The removed pieces were found within the subject's coat, crudely assembled. It appeared that SCP-4586 had disabled the collar and had been using its pieces to craft a device for unknown purposes, blocking the cell camera's line of sight with a notebook when it was working on it. As of this event, the supply of notebooks to the specimen has been halted until further notice. This is Addendum 4586-03, Observation Logs. Since its containment, SCP-4586 has made several requests to the Foundation, claiming each request to be vital for the execution of its work. A meeting with the leading researcher, denied. Access to its recovered equipment, denied. Access to resources such as iron, silver, gold, obsidian, copper, and lead, denied. Paper and pen, granted. Blank notebooks and pens were provided. Subject's writings under surveillance, currently revoked. This is an Addendum 4586-02. Initially, SCP-4586 spent most of its time writing, stopped only during interviews to consult its notebooks or to share its pen. Since the specimen had been granted this request, it had completely filled 4 notebooks with reports on the progress of its work, mathematical equations, and sporadically drawings of symbols of an unknown kind. As of 5/4/2000, SCP-4586 spends most of its days either pacing the cell or tapping the walls, as if in writing motion. Occasionally, SCP-4586 retrieves a brass pocket watch from its coat and glances at it briefly. This is Addendum 4586-04, Experiment 4586 Alpha. Date 27/12/2000. Forward. In order to empirically analyze SCP-4586's unique understanding of factory-related items, Experiment 4586 Alpha was devised by Dr. Albert Coulter, supervised by the site director and a representative of O5. Said experiment consists of the disassembling of all the components comprising SCP-1106. Procedure. Specimen is to be stunned and escorted to Research Wing A, Laboratory 12. Once the subject regains mobility, it is to dismantle SCP-1106 in its entirety with the provided tools, describing both the process and the internal structure of the device as precisely as possible. Sheets of paper, audio and video recording devices are to be arranged. Should the specimen succeed in dismantling SCP-1106, it is to reassemble the device, which is to be later tested to assess its status. At the completion of the test, SCP-4586 is to be escorted back to its cell. Note: SCP-4586 was informed of the test procedure beforehand, which led the subject to request that several additional resources were made available during the test, claiming such would lead to a more uneventful transpiration of events. The requested resources were as it follows: a 3-kilogram block of obsidian, a 200-gram 24-karat gold bar, a 70-gram copper wire coil, and 2 1-kilogram iron bars. Results. Initially, SCP-4586 employed the provided tools and the additional resources to craft an anomalous device resembling a crude scalpel comprised of obsidian and gold pieces strung together by copper wires. The specimen then dismantled an electronic calculator and used its batteries to make the tip of its newly crafted scalpel glow with a blue light. SCP-4586 proceeded to draw a quadrilateral figure on SCP-1106's surface. Upon completing it, the subject removed the figure with its hands, revealing SCP-1106's internal composition, pointing out the heedlessness in its design and the irregular, albeit perilous, results expected from using the device. SCP-4586 proceeded to remove similar portions of different measures from other parts of SCP-1106's surface, making several written and verbal notes during the process. Upon removing 6 pieces of SCP-1106, the specimen placed its obsidian tool away, claiming that further intrusions were likely to make SCP-1106 inoperable. After being instructed to repair SCP-1106 to its original state, SCP-4586 proceeded to press the tip of its obsidian device on a provided iron bar. The specimen then placed the removed pieces of the device back to their original positions, using its crafted tool to apparently weld them onto SCP-1106. SCP-4586 was then ordered away from the device, stunned, and returned to its cell. Further testing of the instance of SCP-1106 employed in the experiment confirmed its functionality, as well as the inexistence of any indication that the device had been previously dismantled. The obsidian tool crafted by SCP-4586 was impounded and submitted for further analysis. Analysis. Experiment 4586 Alpha produced controversial results. SCP-1106 was not entirely dismantled, but the incisions done by SCP-4586 enabled the viewing of the internal structure of the device. SCP-4586 demonstrated its ability to craft an anonymous tool with unrelated resources, although Foundation personnel have not been able to replicate the obsidian scalpel on their own. Additionally, the specimen produced several notes regarding SCP-1106's internal composition and functionality. However, their content is predominantly incomprehensible, despite the subject being ordered to otherwise. Decryption of said notes is to be carried out alongside the previously unrecovered writings of SCP-4586 in order to clarify the specimen's unique scientific field. This is Addendum 4586-05, Project Hephaestus. Following Experiment 4586 Alpha by order of the O5 Council and myself, Special Project Hephaestus was commissioned. The goal of Project Hephaestus is the reverse engineering of factory-related SCPs with the intent of comprehending the origin of their anomalous properties and the utilization of such knowledge to locate and better contain related specimens. SCP-4586, the primary asset involved, has thus been reclassified as Thaumiel, and new security measures have been devised to ensure the secrecy and the continuation of Project Hephaestus. The subject has been authorized to work with Foundation researchers in Site-19 in a controlled environment. The following is a list of all experiments involving interactions of SCP-4586 with other anomalous objects performed to date. Test Day, 3/1/2000. Object analyzed. An instance of SCP-133. Procedure. SCP-4586 is to analyze and explain SCP-133's anomalous effect using both provided tools and any equipment it can craft to complete the assigned task. The subject is to be previously briefed on SCP-133. Personnel involved: Dr. Albert Coulter, Dr. Uriel Donor, and Dr. James Schofield. Additional resources requested: a 20 centimeter by 30 centimeter steel sheet 1.5 centimeters thick, 250 milliliters of water, a bowl comprised entirely of obsidian, a 100-gram 24-karat gold bar, the device crafted using experiment 4586 alpha, the specimen requested it as the pencil, the anomalous gram chemical condenser, and the brass microscope built by the subject. This is an addendum 4586-01. Results: SCP-4586 placed the anomalous condenser on the provided recipient, pressed the button, and poured the water on the entry chamber, filling the bowl with an unidentified blue liquid. The specimen then inserted the gold bar into the bowl, stirring it with the pencil. 3 minutes later, SCP-4586 poured the blue liquid on the center of the metal sheet, spreading it with a provided spatula. Approximately 20 seconds after its placement, the liquid was seemingly absorbed by the sheet with no alteration of its appearance. SCP-4586 then placed and pressed the instance of SCP-133 onto the sheet, leading to its fixture, but not the expected manifestation of SCP-133's anomalous effects. SCP-4586 then proceeded to remove a small portion of SCP-133's surface with the pencil and placed it on the anomalous microscope. Upon examining the removed sample for 7 minutes, SCP-4586 began to speak with the researchers about its composition and likely method of construction. The specimen also wrote 51 pages regarding SCP-133 on the provided notebook, claiming to be such a crude but sufficiently elementary summarization of the device. Once the experiment was deemed finished, SCP-4586 allowed itself to be stunned by Foundation personnel and returned to its cell. Hephaestus information. SCP-4586 described SCP-133 to the researchers as a construct of the factory, likely built by the use of the Mokshal rune. The subject outlined how the dispersal of runic energy alongside the circular edge of the device revealed it as a product of engineering. However, the specimen commented on how such engineering was imperfect, as the correct employment of the aforementioned rune would ensure the complete penetration of any length and matter that SCP-133 were inserted upon. The written notes made by SCP-4586 reference the rune in certain points, although the subject did not provide its visual representation. Subject's notes submitted for further analysis. This is Test B, 10/1/2000. Object analyzed, an instance of SCP-750. Procedure. SCP-4586 is to analyze and explain SCP-750's anomalous effect using both provided tools and any equipments it can craft to complete the assigned task. The subject is to be previously briefed on SCP-750. Personnel involved: Dr. Albert Coulter and Dr. James Schofield. Additional resources requested: a 500-gram obsidian block, a 10-gram 24-karat gold bar, an anomalous gram chemical condenser, and the brass microscope built by the subject, 50 milliliters of water, the pencil, a 30-gram copper wire coil, 4.19 centimeter cubed sphere made of steel, and a pedestal to hold it in its place, and a 1 kilogram aluminum bar. Results: SCP-4586 began the experiment by using obsidian and gold pieces to etch a small symbol resembling the Greek letter omega, with 4 intercepting diagonal lines on the aluminum bar with the pencil. The specimen then proceeded to fill the container with the provided water to produce the unidentified blue liquid, which it then poured on the carved symbol, filling it in its entirety. SCP-4586 then cut and attached 3 copper wire strands to the aluminum bar and the bottom of the sphere on the provided pedestal. The specimen then retrieved the instance of SCP-750 from its case and placed it on top of the metal sphere, shortly before using the pencil to touch the center of the carved obsidian symbol. The entity referred to it as process of stimulation. Immediately after SCP-4586 carried out such action, the instance of SCP-750 firmly attached itself to the metal sphere. 15 seconds later, both the sphere and part of the pedestal began to metamorphosize into a black, viscous substance. SCP-4586 then cut the copper wires, which led to the instance of SCP-750 to detach itself from the remains of the metal sphere. SCP-4586 placed a small sample of the produced black substance on the microscope and examined it for 3 minutes. The specimen then proceeded to discuss with the Foundation researchers about SCP-750 and the black compound created during the experiment. SCP-4586 also wrote 63 pages regarding SCP-750 on the notebooks provided. Hephaestus information. SCP-4586 described SCP-750 as an excellent example of a phenomenon named interdimensional corruption. While the specimen was neither brief nor straightforward in its explanation, the phenomenon apparently occurs when matter is directly exposed to interdimensional elements, leading to the eventual breakdown of the physical state of the former and its full conversion into the latter. SCP-4586 outlined that certain procedures, however, could allow one to manipulate these elements and employ the corruption to their needs. The entity also argued that SCP-750 is an artifact of brute constitution and imperfect manufacture, as the corruptive effect during its active state leads to the rapid degeneration of the involved subject, evidenced by the black substance produced in the experiment. SCP-4586 was not capable of determining if this degeneration is a side effect of the improper production of SCP-750 or if such is deliberate. Finally, the specimen's notes mention runes and mechanical devices that can be used to produce instances of SCP-750, though much of the details remain unknown due to SCP-4586's use of unknown terminology and seemingly incomprehensible logic. Subject's notes submitted for further analysis. Test C 2401-2000. Object analyzed. An instance of SCP-1317. Procedure. SCP-4586 is to analyze and explain SCP-1317's anomalous effect using both provided tools and any equipment it can craft to complete the assigned task. The subject is to be previously briefed on SCP-1317. Hazmat suits are to be provided for both SCP-4586 and all Foundation researchers involved in the experiment. Personnel involved: Dr. Albert Coulter, Dr. Uriel Donor, and Dr. James Schofield. Additional resources requested: the anomalous brass microscope built by SCP-4586 and the pencil. Results: SCP-4586 opened SCP-1317's container and placed a sample of the anomalous substance on a glass slide for viewing it on the microscope. 8 minutes after analyzing it, SCP-4586 removed the blade from the microscope, removed the cover slip, and pressed the glowing tip of the pencil onto the sample of SCP-1317. The sample then immediately combusted, acquiring a similar appearance to that of an ember. Approximately 3 minutes after its combustion, the sample returned to its previous state. Upon the conclusion of said process, SCP-4586 began to discuss the experiment with the research personnel. The subject also used 12 pages of a provided notebook to record its observations concerning SCP-1317. Hephaestus information. SCP-4586 claimed that it had previously encountered SCP-1317, although not as it is in its current state. The specimen outlined, both while discussing with Foundation personnel and on its notes, that the sample resembled a substance produced by devices which employ runic energy to craft anomalous products. SCP-4586 explained that the constant attrition between interdimensional elements and physical matter periodically produces a seemingly useless material referred in the specimen's writing as ferrous dust. Subject described such material as extremely harmful for humans as its exposure to unprotected segments of living tissue lead to their progressive conversion into a stone-like gray compound. SCP-4586 claimed that while the removal of limbs or fingers contaminated by ferrous dust may lead to the halting of its spread, a hypothetical contamination of organs is irreversible. The specimen theorized that SCP-1317 is an industrially engineered variation of ferrous dust, due to the similarity of the molecular structures of both substances and the reduced emission of energy upon SCP-1317's combustion. However, the subject claimed that SCP-1317 appears to be incomplete, as in the specimen's own words, "The runic energy dispersed in this substance is acutely chaotic, with its reasons either being the attempt to direct the runic energy for unknown purposes, or as a deliberate endeavor to maximize certain degenerative aspects of ferrous dust." When questioned as to what process in runes could have led to the creation of SCP-1317, SCP-4586 stated that it would be difficult to produce a definite answer due to the substance's own erratic composition. Subject's notes submitted for further analysis. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was SCP-4586. You are dismissed.